Welcome to the session of coming home to the soul self. I'd like to begin with a short centering, an arriving, kind of a sense of actually becoming present. And then I will take a short while just to describe what I mean by the practice of coming home to the soul self. And then I would like to offer a guided meditation so that you can experience for yourselves what it is that I'm describing. So first of all, just taking a moment to drop into your body, breathing deeply all the way down into the belly. And as you breathe in, really get a sense of allowing the breath to deepen. And as you breathe out, allow yourself to relax, to drop kind of tension that you recognize that you're carrying, so that you can simply be present. Breathing in, letting go of distractions. Breathing out, relaxing, letting go of tension. Breathing in, allowing the clouds of thoughts to pass by like clouds in the sky. Just letting them pass by without rejecting them. Simply noticing them, letting them go like clouds in the sky. Breathing out, coming back to the experience of how it is to be embodied. We spend so much of our life not really in our bodies, so caught in our minds and our thoughts. So taking a moment to appreciate how wonderful it is to actually have a body, to be able to access these 5 senses, 6 senses, however many senses we identify. And then as I begin describing the process of coming home to the soul self, I ask you to keep returning your attention to your body, to your breathing, to simply being present. Being aware of the sounds of my voice, the sounds of any noises in the distance, dogs barking, weed eaters. The subtler sounds that bring us into a place of deeper quietness, the sound of your own breathing. The experience of breathing in and recognizing that breath is also life force, and so we breathe into what we perceive as our lungs, but the life force energy flows throughout our whole being. The prana, which means both breath and life force, flows through our whole being. Just staying present with that. So before I describe the coming home to the soul self, I just want to define what I mean in terms of soul, because I think that there are many different definitions of soul and spirit. So for me, spirit is something that we yearn for and have an intention towards. So it's an active movement that we make towards spirit. Spirit is something beyond this actual form and this body. It's a oneness consciousness. It's a light. It's and there's it's like a yang movement as we breathe in. It's this yang movement upwards into what we might term spirit, what in Christian traditions is called God, or in many traditions, what in often in meditation, much meditation is that movement towards spirit. Kundalini meditation is the active principle of gathering the Kundalini energy in the belly, allowing it down into the perineum and then up through the spine and out through the top of the head in an awakening, an enlightening experience, moving up towards all that is perfect. And then soul, that's the spirit, the yang movement, the active movement is a movement upwards through what I would call the four faces of love, or the divine abodings in Buddhism. They're referred to as the Brahma Viharis, the divine abodings. Move through that. I'll come back to that in a sec. And then there's this descent back into form again. It's like the out breath, and it's a yin movement. There's no active principle in it. It's a receiving. So we breathe upwards. It's an active intention that we make, and then we receive into our body in a yin movement, receive back into our sort of the soul self, which is the essence inside this body that is Robin. So the yang movement is towards the light, towards oneness consciousness, gathering those four faces of love that I'll come back to, and then dropping down into this receptive quality of being present to all that is in the experience of living in a body on earth as a human, the imperfection of that. And in the essence of this downward movement, there's a kind of a recognition that this is soulful. And soul is messy. Spirit is perfect, is light, is yang. Soul is yin, is dark, mysterious, unknown, messy. It's kind of like, it's sort of like moving into a womb space. It's nurturing. And it allows for the experiences of life to be seen as a magnificent journey in terms of soul expansion and soul growth. So what we often perceive of as the challenges in our life, the difficulties, or perhaps my anger, my fear, my hopelessness, my apathy, guilt, shame, depression, all of that is simply a kind of a contraction into a very small space where we actually are kind of contracting away from the essence of who we are into such a separate sense of self that we can hardly breathe. And then a recognition that this in itself is simply a soul experience to bring us, if we choose to do so, into a place of greater acceptance, greater soul, into a greater sense of our soul self. So the challenges are simply a tool, a kind of a gift from soul to allow us into a place where we can fully become who we are meant to be. Because if we don't have challenges, we don't bother. We don't bother with that yearning up towards spirit. We don't bother with the kind of increasing this capacity to be present. We just get on with life. And the challenges are what sometimes force us into a place of and then there's a kind of a not being able to fight it any longer, and a receiving of the wound, receiving of the pain, and a kind of an opening, a stillness that we find in the center of this extraordinary thing called life. So the coming home to the soul self is the receiving. And what we do is we move up in the in-breath, up towards oneness, towards this experience that we yearn for, of the four faces of love. The four faces of love are loving kindness, which is the ability to meet ourselves and the world with kindness. Compassion. Com means with, passion means suffering, the ability to be with suffering. Appreciative joy, the ability to be joyful with a sense of real gratitude for everything that we experience. And equanimity or serenity, the ability to be content with things just the way they are right now, in the imperfection of what life presents to us. So there's this movement upwards towards the four faces of love, towards oneness, towards a dissolution of self, towards a kind of an emptiness. By emptiness I mean free from like the distractions and the form of being here, towards this blissfulness, and beyond blissfulness, actually just pure presence, and then descent back down into form, into the heart of what we might call a womb. And I don't mean womb in terms of a feminine, like only females have a womb. I just mean that creative, dark, unknown space of allowing and trusting that things grow simply by being themselves. And so as we come back into body, as we descend, having kind of more capacity because we have gathered the four faces of love with which to meet the imperfection of this body, we encounter the constrictions, the anger that makes us dense and maybe hard. Anger can be clear, but it can also be brooding and dark and heavy. The fear that makes us very tiny. Beneath the fear, the sort of hopelessness, depression, apathy, guilt, shame. These things make us very separate, almost quite grey. Life loses its kind of its colour, its expansion, its engagement, and we come into a very tiny space. And then when we bring the four faces of love back into this experience that I am having right now, in my own unique life, and hold that imperfection, that sense of this is how it is. This is my soul self speaking to me. My experience in life is simply my soul self speaking to me. Then we come into a place of sort of letting go into it, of not fighting it any longer, of receiving, of being a vast receptacle. And the experience of being a receptacle expresses itself through play and through kindness. Play is one of the highest expressions of spirituality, as is kindness. They're the expressions of these four faces of love as we bring them into embodiment, into the wounds, my wounds, my country's wounds, the wounds of the world. And even though we might think that these wounds do not belong to us, my experience of the wounds of the world is unique. I experience them differently to the way you experience them because I filter them through my own personal beliefs, through my own personal conditioning, through the way that I have learnt how to perceive the world. And if I can hold it all as this vast receiver, as this vast receptacle that captures the four phases of love, it's a real out-breath. And there's this sense of arriving home. In that arriving is a stillness. So the movement is the movement up, capturing, down, holding. And in the arrival is a stillness. It's T.S. Eliot described it once. This is a section of one of his poems, where he said, without the point, the still point, there would be no dance, and there is only the dance. So the dance is the movement, the yearning up towards perfection, towards love, and the descent into the soul. And within that movement is this incredible stillness that creates the movement, out of which the movement forms. And so we move upwards, drop back downwards, and we rest in the stillness, in the still point, in the center. We come home to the soul. So that's the explanation for now. Of course, there are many other aspects to it. You can go into so many different kind of permutations around this experience. But for now, that's sort of the basis of it. And so I would like to offer a 33-minute meditation. And I will guide it partially. I'll come in, guide it. We'll have a little bit of silence, a little bit more guiding, a little bit more silence. And just take this time to really experience for yourself that quality of breathing in, gathering, breathing out. To set the timer. Make yourselves comfortable. If you need to move while we're doing the meditation, please feel free to do so. It's not about forcing. It's simply about coming back to being present and following this movement that is also in its center stillness. You might wish to close your eyes. If you choose to keep them open, just focus very gently on a space on the floor or a little bit downwards in front of you. It's better to sit than to lie down for meditation. The energy flows more easily and you can more easily kind of connect to that space of the movement upwards, the breathing upwards and the settling downwards. It's okay to sit on a cushion, to sit on a chair, whatever feels right to you. And take a moment once again to settle. Settling into this body. Breathing deeply into the belly. Releasing distraction. Letting thoughts pass by like clouds in the sky. becoming aware of how it feels in the body. If there are any places of pain, discomfort, or tension, just holding them gently in your awareness. If you feel that your breathing is shallow, again, simply noticing it, allowing it to drop as you relax without judgment. Notice the movement of the breathing in and out, into the belly, relaxing and receiving as you breathe out. Allowing external sounds to drift by without attaching to them. Just coming back to your own experience of breathing and settling. And then begin with this movement that I was describing of breathing in, and as you're breathing in, feeling that as a yearning, as an intention, as an aspiration towards the light and towards these four faces of love. Loving kindness, compassion, the ability to be with suffering, appreciative joy, and serenity. Moving up towards that, breathing it in, feeling the expansion of moving into that space. And then as you breathe out, really allowing for a dropping back into the body. The sense of the body as a receptacle, a receiver of these four faces of love. So you breathe in with the intention, the aspiration, the movement towards perfection, towards light. And as you breathe out, allow your awareness to drop into your body. Let your body receive the loving kindness. Let your body receive compassion. Let your body receive its ability to be with its own suffering, with its wound. Allow your body to receive appreciative joy, a sense of gratitude for this little life that I experience for a limited period of time. Allow your body to receive the sense of serenity, of equanimity, of things being simply okay just the way they are. And become aware of what that means to you right now, that sense of serenity, of equanimity. For me right now, there's the sound of a machine making an enormous amount of noise in the distance. There's a sense in me of wanting it not to be there, or to interfere with the recording of this meditation. And so, for me right now, there's a sense of dropping into the perfection of that, the perfection of this imperfection. The allowing that that's how it is, this experience of life, filled with distraction and noise. We're dropping into that and receiving of the love. So with the breathing in and breathing out, it's not necessary on every in-breath to ensure that the focus is upward towards the light, or every out-breath to be the receiving. But there's a sense that there's a movement, and the movement upwards is like an in-breath. It's an active movement towards light, towards health. And then there's this downward movement on the out-breath, which is a letting go, a surrender, a receiving into this form, into this body, into these emotions, into this mind state, into this experience of life. Following the movement up towards the light, towards this expansive sense of oneness, moving through the bliss and rapture of the four faces of love into the calm and clarity of a sense of oneness, of a dissolving, the gathering of the loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, equanimity, and the breathing out, the dropping down into this body, to this wounded experience that is sometimes playful, sometimes joyful, sometimes intense, sometimes calm, sometimes perfect, often imperfect, dropping down into that and receiving, in that, receiving the four faces of love. Allowing this body to receive loving kindness, just dropping kindness into the body, letting the body receive the love, the kindness. Allowing the body to be with suffering, to be present to all that is, that which is good, that which is challenging. with the recognition that it's all simply food from the soul self for massive transformation and expansion. In that dropping down, experience the appreciative joy, the gratitude for all that is, for our beauty, for our bodies, for our lives, for the difficulties that we experience. Dropping down into equanimity, into serenity, into allowing things to be exactly the way they are. Noises in the distance, any discomfort in the body, a holding of the emotional states that we carry right now, which might be impacted on by what's been happening in our lives before the meditation. And then coming to rest in stillness. Stillness in the midst of movement, stillness in the midst of distraction and noise. So breathing in, stretching up towards this awakening, towards the gathering of the four faces of love. Breathing out, receiving into the body. Feeling your capacity to be with what is in your life expand. And then rest in a moment of stillness. Breathing in, breathing into the presence, the perfection, the light, the love. Breathing out and receiving. Dropping into stillness. Feeling your capacity to be present grow through this receiving, through this coming home to the soul self. noticing in the dropping how we drop through those places where we have felt constricted, wounded, armored, through the anger and the denseness of the anger, through the fear and how small it makes us, through the greyness of any kind of feeling of depression or apathy or hopelessness, through the judgment of guilt and shame. Holding them all gently, holding them all with this capacity to love, bringing loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and serenity into these spaces of constriction, into the experience of these difficult emotional states. It's almost like you're saying to them, there, I see you, I hear you, I understand your pain. There, I see you, I hear you, I understand your pain. Breathing in with the movement upwards, the intention, the yearning towards love, as loving kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity. And then breathing out and receiving this love into the imperfection of this daily experience of life, into the perfection of the imperfection, into the recognition that our lives are simply a mirror of our soul selves yearning for greater health, greater wholeness. And in that wholeness, in that expansion, in that capacity to receive, what emerges is a sense of playfulness, a sense of ease, an ability to be with what is, an enjoyment of life, a kindness towards self and other. The Dalai Lama once said, "My religion is kindness." So simply being with that, receiving in a kindly fashion, so that in turn, in time, as you move back out into the world, you express yourself in a kindly fashion, with loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity, greater serenity. Except for the point, the still point, there would be no dance, and there is only the dance. Dancing with the movement upwards towards the light, towards the four faces of love. Dancing with the receiving, the opening to receive this love, into this experience of life, into this soul self, into coming home, to being present, to the perfection of the imperfection, into all that is. Breathing in with a movement upwards towards God, towards the light. And breathing out and recognizing that God is the soul essence within each of us. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. And then in the last few minutes of the meditation, the last 4 minutes, just taking a moment to be present to the stillness within and to a kind of a feeling into that, feeling into what it is that you wish to take from this out into the world. Almost like a listening to it. Listen to it and see what does the stillness have to say to you that is valuable for you to use in your life. Because there's a wisdom in the stillness. Feeling into that. So it's like listening to your own thoughts, but the thoughts or the mind is offering insights that come from a different place within us, from a place that is the home of the soul self. So listening to those thoughts with an awareness of how they can help you in your life. From this place of meditative stillness, what would you like to take out into your life? And then as you breathe out, this prayer for yourself. May I be well. May I be free from harm and suffering. May I be at peace. May we be well. May we be free from harm and suffering. May we be at peace. May all beings be well. May all beings be free from harm and suffering. May all beings be at peace. Many blessings on you and on your day.